Alexander the Great was one of the greatest military strategists and leaders in world history, just like his father, King Philip II. He was born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of the ancient kingdom of Macedonia in northern Greece. His mother, Queen Olympias, filled young Alexander's mind with stories of gods and heroes. His tutor was none other than Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers who ever lived. He was also ruthless, dictatorial, and ambitious to the point of regarding himself as divine. His conquests of the Mediterranean states, the Persian Empire, and parts of India spread Hellenistic culture across these regions. His campaign of conquests from Greece spanned across Anatolia, Syria, Phoenicia, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greater Iran, Afghanistan, and India. He extended the boundaries of his Macedonian Empire as far east as the city of Taxila in modern-day Pakistan. When Alexander captured the Persian treasury at Susa, he took 50,000 talents of gold and silver. At today's gold price, $108,000 per kilogram, this amounts to about $178 billion, on par with the net worth of Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon. Just imagine the Great Pyramid of Giza filled to the top with gold bars. Despite his victories, Alexander's ambition outpaced his army. Exhausted in India, his men refused to march further, forcing him to turn back. At just 32, he mysteriously died in Babylon, some say poison, others disease. His body, said to resist decay, left many believing he was divine. Julius Caesar was one of the most brilliant leaders in Roman history, both feared as a general and admired as a statesman. He was born in 100 BC into a patrician family in Rome, but his youth was marked by danger. At one point, pirates captured him, and legend says Caesar promised he would return to crucify them, and he did. He rose through politics with sharp ambition, becoming a master orator and military commander. His conquest of Gaul not only expanded Rome borders but also made him a hero to the people and a threat to the Senate. Crossing the Rubicon in 49 BC, Caesar defied Rome's laws and plunged the Republic into civil war. As dictator, he pushed reforms, expanding citizenship, reforming the calendar, and reducing debts. But his growing power and refusal to step aside made enemies. On the Ides of March in 44 BC, Caesar was assassinated by senators he once called friends. His death marked the end of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. King Solomon was not only the wisest king in history, but also the richest, richer than many of the greatest rulers the world has ever seen. While other kings built empires with blood and conquest, Solomon built his with wisdom, wealth, and alliances. Every year he received 25 tons of gold, worth billions today. In his time, silver became so common in Jerusalem it was considered worthless. Gold covered palaces, shields, and even the great temple he built for God. His fame spread so far that the Queen of Sheba crossed deserts to meet him. She came with caravans of treasure, yet left astonished, saying that not even half of his wisdom and wealth had been told. But Solomon's brilliance carried a price. His endless building projects and heavy taxes strained his people, and after his death, his kingdom fractured. To this day, Solomon is remembered as a king who turned wisdom into an empire of gold, a ruler unmatched in both brilliance and wealth. Ramses II, known as Ramses the Great, was the most powerful pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Unlike other kings who ruled for only a short time, Ramses reigned for 66 years, longer than most people lived back then. He built more monuments, statues, and temples than any other Egyptian ruler. The massive temples of Abu Simbel, carved into solid rock, were designed so that twice a year the sun would shine directly on Ramses' statue inside, as if even the heavens bowed to him. Ramses was also a warrior. He led Egypt's armies against the Hittites at the famous Battle of Kadesh, one of the largest chariot battles in history. Though the battle ended in a stalemate, Ramses proclaimed himself the victor and had the story carved into stone for eternity. His wealth was legendary. Gold from Nubia, tributes from conquered lands, and endless slaves filled his empire. He was worshipped as a god on earth, his statues so massive that centuries later, the Greeks mistook them for works of giants. Ramses lived into his 90s, fathering more than 100 children, and when he finally died, Egypt wept for the man they called the Great Ancestor. Genghis Khan was not born into power, he was born into nothing. His real name was Temujin, a boy from the harsh Mongolian steppes. As a child, his father was poisoned by enemies, and his family was left to starve. Temujin survived by sheer will, hunting and fighting for every scrap of food. But from that struggle rose a conqueror. He united the warring Mongol tribes under one banner and became Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. What made him terrifying was not just his brutality, but his strategy. His horsemen could ride for days without stopping, striking faster than any army the world had ever seen. He built the largest empire in human history, stretching from China to Europe, and he did it in just 25 years. Cities that resisted were wiped off the map, but those who surrendered were spared and added to his empire. Wealth poured in from trade along the Silk Road. At his height, Genghis Khan controlled lands that produced 1/3 of the world's goods. His empire was so vast that historians say a maiden could carry a pot of gold across it without fear of being robbed. And yet, Genghis was more than a conqueror. He introduced laws, promoted merit over birthright, and allowed freedom of religion, centuries ahead of his time. When he died in 1227, he was buried in secret. To this day, no one knows where his body lies. Mansa Musa, the ruler of the Mali Empire in the 14th century, is remembered as the wealthiest king who ever lived. His empire sat on the richest gold mines in the world, at a time when gold itself was the foundation of global trade. But Musa wasn't just rich, he was legendary. In 1324, he made a pilgrimage to Mecca that shook the world. Traveling with tens of thousands of soldiers, servants, and slaves, Musa carried so much gold that when he passed through Egypt, he spent and gifted so freely that he collapsed the Egyptian economy. Gold lost its value, and prices didn't recover for more than 10 years. At today's value, his fortune would be worth over $400 billion, more than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos combined. But Musa wasn't only about wealth. He built mosques, libraries, and transformed Timbuktu into a center of learning and culture that attracted scholars from all across the world. To this day, Mansa Musa stands as the symbol of power, wisdom, and unimaginable riches. Cyrus the Great was not only a conqueror, but also a visionary leader. Born around 600 BC in the region of Persis, modern-day Iran, Cyrus founded the mighty Achaemenid Empire, the first Persian empire. Unlike many rulers of his time, Cyrus was known for his tolerance and respect for the cultures and religions of the lands he conquered. He expanded his empire across the Middle East, defeating the powerful Medes, Babylonians, and Lydians. But his greatness was not only in war. When he entered Babylon in 539 BC, instead of destroying the city, he freed the enslaved people, including the Jews, and allowed them to return to Jerusalem. This act earned him praise in the Bible itself. Cyrus also created the Cyrus Cylinder, often called the world's first declaration of human rights. He proved that an empire could be both powerful and just. By the time of his death, the Persian Empire was the largest the world had ever seen, stretching from modern-day Turkey to India. Cyrus the Great wasn't just a king, he was a legend whose influence still echoes 2,500 years later. Ashoka the Great was one of India's most powerful kings, ruling the Maurya Empire in the 3rd century BC. At first, he was ruthless, a warrior who crushed enemies without mercy. His conquest of Kalinga was so brutal that over 100,000 people were killed. But that moment changed him forever. Haunted by the bloodshed, Ashoka turned away from violence and embraced Buddhism. Instead of conquering with swords, he began conquering with compassion. He built roads, hospitals, universities, and spread the message of peace across Asia. His edicts, carved into stone pillars, can still be found today in India and beyond. Because of Ashoka, Buddhism spread from India all the way to Sri Lanka, China, and Southeast Asia, shaping the spiritual history of half the world. Few kings in history have transformed so completely, from a ruthless conqueror into a messenger of peace. Shaka Zulu, the fierce African king of the early 19th century, transformed the Zulu tribe into one of the most feared military powers in history. He revolutionized warfare with new tactics, like the short stabbing spear and the bullhorn formation, which overwhelmed enemies. But Shaka wasn't just about war. He built a centralized kingdom, uniting smaller tribes into a powerful Zulu nation. His leadership turned a small tribe into an empire, and his legend still inspires pride across Africa. Brilliant, ruthless, and visionary, Shaka Zulu was the kind of king who changed the course of history. Charlemagne was the giant who united Europe from the ashes of Rome. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, he conquered most of Western Europe and became emperor on Christmas Day, 800 AD, reviving an empire dead for centuries. Though he couldn't read, Charlemagne founded schools and brought scholars from across the known world to his golden palace at Aachen. His empire stretched from Spain to Germany, and he pulled Europe out of the Dark Ages through learning and faith. When he died in 814, Charlemagne left behind more than territory. he created the very idea of a united Christian Europe, a vision that echoes in the European Union today.